All right, for all you martial artists and dedicated practitioners out there, welcome. Today, we're unsheathing one of the most incredible texts on strategy ever written, Miyamoto Musashi's Book of Five Rings. But we're not just going to admire it from a distance. Nope. We're going to get right into it and pull out the practical wisdom you can actually use. So let's dive into the master's own words and see if we can find the path to victory. And look, to make sure we're getting this right, we're going straight to the source. What you're looking at here is the Hosokawa manuscript, one of the oldest, most authentic versions of Musashi's text that we have. This whole thing isn't about someone else's interpretation, it's about getting as close as we can to his direct teachings. If you want to boil down Musashi's entire philosophy into one single, powerful idea, this is it. The goal isn't to learn a rigid set of moves. It's to cultivate a mind and a body that are just like water. Infinitely adaptable, formless, but powerful enough to crash through any obstacle without ever losing its fundamental nature. That core idea is what we're going to be exploring today. So here's our game plan. First, we're going to dig into the foundation, what Musashi calls the unmovable mind. Then, we'll see how that mindset gets applied when it comes to controlling the enemy. And finally, we'll talk about the ultimate goal of all this training, the path to emptiness. Okay, let's start with the most critical piece of the puzzle, your internal state. See, before you can even think about defeating an opponent, you have to master yourself. Musashi was absolutely convinced that all winning strategy is built on the bedrock of a properly cultivated mind. So, what is this correct state of mind? Well, Musashi calls it Heijo Shin, or the normal mind. And this is a really radical idea. He's saying that your mindset in a life-or-death duel should be exactly the same as your everyday mind. Just broad, direct, and calm. There's no special combat mode to switch on. The goal is to be consistent and stable, no matter how intense the pressure gets. And to get to that normal mind, Musashi tells us to place it right in the middle. Think about it like tuning a guitar string. If the string is pulled way too tight with tension and focus, it's brittle, it's going to snap. But if it's too loose and unfocused, it can't even play a note. The sweet spot is that perfect balance where you're alert but relaxed, ready for absolutely anything without getting fixated on just one thing. Now this is where it gets really interesting. It's all about separating the mind and body. Your mind shouldn't get dragged down by physical pain or exhaustion. And on the flip side, your body shouldn't get all stiff and tense because of fear or anxiety. When they work in harmony but without disrupting each other, well, then you can have a calm mind directing a fast, dynamic body, or you could have a still body with a mind that's racing, planning 3 steps ahead. That separation is the key to keeping your cool. And this brings us to the final piece of that mental foundation. Musashi says we have 2 ways of seeing things. There's the Ken no Mi, the seeing eye. This one just sees the surface level stuff, the opponent's sword, where their feet are. He says we need to weaken this one. What we need to strengthen is the kan no mi, the observing eye. This is the one that perceives what's underneath all that, their spirit, their real intentions, the whole rhythm of the fight. It sees the truth. So with that foundation in place, let's see how you actually use it. Okay, so you've got this calm, balanced, and perceptive mind, but how do you actually win? Now we get into the application. This is where that internal state gets translated into decisive external action. For Musashi, victory is basically a 3-step process. First, you use that observing eye to sense the kiki. That's the flow, the momentum of the fight. Is your opponent's energy rising or falling? Second, you watch for the kazure. That's the moment their rhythm breaks or their spirit wobbles, even for a split second. And third, the moment you see that collapse, you strike immediately. No hesitation at all. One of Musashi's most famous techniques for controlling the fight is Makuta o Osayuru, which translates to pressing the pillow. Just imagine your opponent is about to lift their head from a pillow to get up and do something. This technique is all about pressing their head right back down before they even start. You sense their intention, their beginning, and you strike that opening, completely neutralizing their attack before it even gets off the ground. It is the ultimate form of preemption. Musashi was also a master of psychological warfare, of playing mind games. He talks about utsurakasu, or infecting your opponent. If you act bored and relaxed, they might let their guard down. If you act rushed, they might get flustered. He also describes kage o ugokasu, moving the shadow. Say you don't know what their plan is, you feint a big attack. Their reaction, that's the shadow, and it tells you everything you need to know about their strategy.
And strategy isn't just about mentality and swordplay, it's about being practical. Musashi really hammers home the importance of ba no shirai ichi, which is all about using the environment. You should always be maneuvering to put your opponent in a bad spot. Put the sun in their eyes. Make sure they have an obstacle behind them. You control the space and you get a huge tactical advantage.
So we've built the foundation and we've seen the application, all the techniques you can use to control a fight. But Musashi teaches us that technique alone is not the end goal. So where does all this training ultimately lead? Well, that brings us to his most profound concept, the path to emptiness. Now, when Musashi talks about ku, or emptiness, he doesn't mean nothingness. Not at all. He means a state of mind that is empty of confusion, empty of doubt, empty of hesitation. It's what happens after you've internalized all these principles and you've drilled them thousands upon thousands of times. The clouds of conscious thought just clear away, and you can simply act, naturally, spontaneously, and perfectly in tune with the way of strategy.
I mean, what a beautiful way to think about it, right? The goal isn't to be in a fight, actively thinking, okay, time to use pressing the pillow. The real goal is for all your training to become like a great river flowing inside you, deep, powerful, and quiet. On the surface, you're calm, you're in your normal mind, but underneath, all that skill is just flowing effortlessly, born from daily, relentless practice.
And this right here is the ultimate expression of that state of emptiness. Your mind becomes a perfectly polished mirror. It's so clear, so empty of its own junk and distortions that it just perfectly reflects the opponent. You see their every intention, every flicker of doubt, every single opening as if it were your own. You don't have to guess anymore. You simply know. So the real takeaway from Musashi isn't just about how to win a fight. It's about a lifelong path of forging yourself. And it leaves us with a question we have to ask ourselves, in our training and in our lives. Have we done the hard work to polish our own mirror? Or are the clouds of doubt and confusion still blocking what we can truly see? That is the path of the warrior.